Any apologies? Appear to be none. Conflicts of interest? Appear to be none. Confirmation of minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is someone prepared to move the adoption of the minutes? Moved by Jason, seconded Sarah. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Matters arising, just one issue on the quarry. We don't need to record it if you like. Here to say we're making good progress with him, and all the issues are in hand as far as we're concerned at this stage, as far as the quarry goes, just so you're aware of that. Any other matters arising? Appear to be none. Is Robbie entering the red light district, is he? All right, no deputations, presentations, no adjourned business. The first report on Milton Reserve, pages 20 to 29. Grant, welcome.
So you've got the report in front of you. I'll take that as read. Basically, it's just a carry on from the workshop we carried out with you months so back. We've got to that, so a very brief update. We following that, we had a chat with the friends of the dog park and also with the guys from the train Railway Club. The friends of Rangiora, they expressed that they were stoked to get land within that, the design for that agility area to be within that master plan at the moment. They did say that they would obviously have preferred that large area that went under the trees, but they were happy at the moment that there was at least this piece here, and that they would probably that during the consultation and put that out to their members to see what their members felt as a wider collective rather than just as the small group that I was. So that was good from them. The model railway people, we had a bit of a discussion around what it would mean to be located at that spot, and that there's obviously less foot traffic going past than what they have in the current Black Street address. They didn't seem to be particularly perturbed by that, and said, well, this is our favourite option in terms of location, and that as a club that sort of talked through it, considered those things. They did suggest, as you'll see in the report, it suggested an alternative location of the old Bunnings building, but they decided it was probably less likely that Milton to proceed, so they got pressing forward with that. So as you can see, it hasn't changed, I guess, the overall design altogether that much. The concept has stayed the same. We've just got the addition of that building and a slight change to this proposed dog agility area. And there's also identified on here where the toilets, which are scheduled for 23, 24, I think it was, where they would likely be best located. So like the majority of them visiting the site. So we put that into the plan and seek approval for taking that out to consultation to see what the public think about that. As part of that, we would be approaching an NCAM just to work through any specifications they might have, not only about the stop back, but the area north of the stop back, which is in that kind of secondary flow path. So we would be having discussions with them of concerns or mitigating things that they would require through there. In terms of Milton, that's probably the rest of within the report, so I'll leave it up to you and questions. I will note. Oh, so yeah, so obviously we've done a cost estimate of what it would be to, we believe, to create this. That's bearing in mind that the club will be providing all the services associated with their build and things, and same with the agility, just the fencing. They would be doing the actual agility equipment. That came in at 160 or 5,000, and so that's obviously over the amount that's currently within the long-term plan. There was discussion at the last board meeting, the workshop around that being a potential project for your town ex, which is project general landscape budget. So we have recommended in there that the board could put 35,000 from your general landscape budget towards this as a town entrance development through there, which you've got enough budget to do that should you wish, and you'd have 30,561 left over. Since the writing of this report, we've also been approached. It's not really linked to Milton apart from being sort of close, but we've been approached by the accessibility group around a question around whether the board might be interested in using the general landscape budget also to put a seat in down by the Arlington shopping centre. And whether there might be budget for general landscaping to do that. So a seat generally costs about $2,500 to put in. The reason I'm bringing it up is because you're currently considering allocating money towards your general from your general landscaping project. So it's good for you to have that in your mind, and should you wish to, that could be another one you may choose to put money towards. Basically be us installing a seat if it's in the area where a lot of people do walk around there. Actually, I myself during lockdown spent a lot of time walking around that area and noticed a bit of a lack of seating, so I could empathise with the group when they made that suggestion. But I'll bring that to the board, so happy to answer any questions.
Just on the Arlington, the issue came up. Chris Greengrass, the president or chair of Kaiapoi Community Board, is chair of the Access Group, and she was approached by the Rangiora group that there is no seating anywhere or anywhere they can sit down if they go to the Arlington shopping centre. Raised it with me, I raised it with the staff, and looking at this, while it's a backdoor approach, we could add it on to either E tonight or F in one form or another if the board were of a mind to. Was it? I thought the cost would be up to 2,000. Do you think it would be more than that?
We probably could get it in for 2,000. That's depends on the type of thing we get. Yes, but yeah, 2,000 we can make it.
Thank you. Paul, question?
Community board looking at other interests for Rangiora. What's the cost of possibly we may do something on Kingsbury F and this new development fund over there? Have you got that sort of a rough idea of the cost of that, and have we finished to complete the amount of money for Lineside Road and all those other projects? That's the first question.
Shall I deal with that one first?
Please, yeah.
Right, so in terms of your budget, yes, so there's a big chunk of your budget. Bear in mind your, that is a budget that you get allocated each year, so we would anticipate you get another budget in the next financial year, which will go back into whatever's left from this year. So you would have budget next year to spend. In terms of town entrances, to spend down at Kingsbury Ed, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to think where's Kingsbury's entrance, but yeah, so it is in line with that kind of, by the time you do entrance sort of work, I spoke with Tori around the line side entrance, and she believes that that the work will be done without requiring further budget, so that's all kind of they're just waiting for it to be completed. So yeah, hope that answers that question.
So we maybe expected something for Kippenberger Avenue around the 35 to 40k as well coming up then, if the other entrances are that sort of cost.
So I should use this. Expectation is a strong word. I guess the board have previously signalled and been working on developing those town entrances. So in terms of what this budget goes towards, it is entirely your decision, and there's no one can put expectations that you have to spend it on town entrances. But if you're looking at developing that entrance, it likely is going to be somewhere in that realm. I know there was previous plans done for Kippenberger which were well and truly above that realm. But it all depends on what you choose to do down there. So it wouldn't be out of line to think that at some point, if you want to continue with the town entrances, that would be.
But we have no knowledge of what
it
the
would
final analysis will be on Kippenberger, and by that stage we'll have another grant in next year's budget. So, yeah, Kirsten.
Yes, I was just going to ask Liz if
Excuse me, point of order, I hadn't finished my question. I said that was the first question. I hadn't quite
Well,
finished.
I'll come back to you. I don't always give members continuous questions. I like to move it around, but I thought you'd finished. I apologise for that. But Kirsten started, so we'll come back to you, Paul.
just Liz, I thought we'd already received a report at council that due to the potential for development in the Kippenberger area that was going to be on hold until the development was sorted in the area.
I've got a loud voice.
You're quite right.
I actually think you're right. I think there has been some previous conversation around Kippenberger because of some of the challenges that area had posed, particularly around the trees, and it's been previously discussed. So there is no, my understanding is there's no intention to bring that back to life at this stage.
No, that's correct.
Anybody else first?
Paul Williams.
Second question, I've got two more after this, Chairman. I've got two more questions after this. The toilet, the sewer, is that going to be connected to the actual main sewer line that goes down River Road, or you're looking at septic tank system for it?
What's that got to do?
I believe that would be into the sewer. So there's already toilets in the croquet table bowls club. So I haven't done a detailed analysis of exactly where those pipes are, but we would anticipate that they would go into that connection.
Oh, that's cool. And seats, what budget do they normally come out of when you put seats around reserves? Is that normally a landscaping out of the community boards?
It all depends really. If we have budget to develop, so sometimes we'll have a specific budget to develop a reserve. For example, I'm trying to think, probably Oxford Park and Rangiora would be an example where, as part of that development, we put in seating and things to work with that. In terms of this sort of situation where it's, I guess, a standalone item, it generally is, if it's coming from green space, it's generally the general budget.
Yes.
Is where it would come
So
from.
there's no other budget you can take it from?
Not that I'm aware.
No, cool. And last question, can I have a breakdown please of that 165,000 for the fencing and what have you?
My memory isn't that good offhand at the moment, but I can note that.
Can you come back to us on that? Brilliant, thank you.
Kirsten.
Thank you for all the information, Grant. It looks like you've done a lot of work on this plan. The question I've got is, I know the Model Railway Club has some funding available. I know the dog park are fundraising, but what about the Arboretum? Where's the funds for the actual Arboretum coming from? What is the intention there?
So, in terms of the Arboretum, there isn't funds coming from.
This is like
Sorry, I don't think
you're hard to hear. Thank you.
So that, I guess that's a vision which has been put by Trevor to council as a use for that space, and to the board. He hasn't got funding behind him to actually do that. It's more a look. This is what I believe would be a great use in terms of from our green space point of view. We love trees. We also see there's the ability to plant trees, especially large specimen ones, in towns, especially sort of closer in, gets limited more and more, especially with the impacts of shading and things. Even in some of our established reserves, we're constantly getting people asking to chop trees down, which is shading them and things. So an opportunity to plant trees in a reserve like this and create that is one that we felt was worth exploring. So yeah, the budget would come. So part of the breakdown that I'll be providing will be showing that part of that is actually paying for the establishment of those.
So that's
those
out of
trees.
that current Milton Reserve budget, but
Yes.
will staff be asking for more than that budget for the Arboretum?
So that not apart from the
extra
that allocation of
30,000
general
from-
landscaping budget, that we believe we can achieve this with that budget. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Jason?
Firstly, thank you for your time. Just a quick question. With regards to the model club, is there much risk of 10, 15 years down the track another club coming along and requesting a bit of land in the reserve, or are we at the risk of setting a precedent for it?
I guess you're only at risk of setting precedents as to how much the community board accepts precedents. So if another club comes and wants to go there, then their application would be treated by the community board, who are then at that stage, and should be. I guess there's a little bit of you can't say, well, sorry, we're not letting anyone in there because you have already. But that being said, that reserve already has the croquet table bowls club there established there anyway. So yeah, I think I don't know that you're adding precedent by allowing them to be there.
Thank you.
Yes, Liz.
Sorry, Brian, just to clarify my understanding. So you mentioned about the seat, kind of like as a and obviously the board doesn't have. Is it your intention to bring some more information back to the board at a later stage, or will we be looking at changing the recommendation today?
I'm proposing in a moment to move a recommendation to include that, Liz.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
The board requested that, otherwise the board also, because they're considering the general landscaping budget allocation, they can choose to allocate it towards that. We just, for the general landscaping budget, that does require a resolution passed by the board process.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, that's right. Further questions? Duncan?
Grant,
And then Monique.
and it's regarding the section of Ekin land at the top end. From a landscaping perspective, you would always take consideration of shading regarding road safety and line of sight, because at the moment it looks a perfect line of sight, but you could argue that if people obey the road rules and read the signs, it should be as safe as anything. But you'd be watching what you planted in the top end is what I'm asking.
Yeah, certainly, and I guess also to note would be with arboretums, generally speaking, and actually trees within most of our reserves, we do work with the trees and limb them up so you can see underneath them and things. So, yeah, I don't anticipate that would be a major concern. Yeah.
Monique?
I was just going to ask about the plantings. I showed them, Keep Rangiora Beautiful Group, the plan of Trevor's, and they were concerned about the planting not being suitable in that area. Could they be invited to perhaps be involved in what is planted there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in terms of the tree species that are going to go in there, we're going to need to make sure that we're quite careful in terms of what goes in there. It won't be, I think, Trevor has a vision of a lot of exotic and a lot of specific trees. Some of those, like I've had a look through his list, a lot of those would survive down there, but there's some that we, with our, I guess, the knowledge of our green space team would go, we've tried those around this area, we probably won't go there. It's a case by case of actually doing a bit of research, and Keep Rangiora Beautiful would be a great group to have involved in that because they've also got that local knowledge. So yeah.
I don't know if they're interested, but
I note, Grant, you're going to discuss species with Environment Canterbury's engineers. What experience do they have on tree species? They're pretty good at taking them down in that area, but
So it wouldn't be just species that we're discussing with them. It would be placement in terms of whether there's a certain amount of trees in there that they wouldn't want over or anything like that. It would be tree species in terms of some trees they don't like anywhere near waterways because they're more prolific and spreading, or they have issues with some trees pretty much. I won't go into all the different ones they have, but there's some trees that they really specifically don't like in there, so we would take that into account. All of that information, because we're doing it as part of the consultation process, that information would come back to the board and as an explanation for any decisions that we made around that plan.
any further questions? Monique, your mic's on. Thank you. All right, well, I'll test the meeting. I'll move A, B, C, D, E, F. If 1 approves the allocation of the 35,000 budget, and 2, if 2 approves staff spending up to $2,000 in Arlington Shopping Centre area for suitable seating, and G will change to, this will leave $11,561 in the budget. Have I seconded for that? Seconded by Duncan. It seems really pleasing, I think, that at last Milton's getting out again in a more final state, because it's been in front of this board for a long, long time. I forget how long, Murray, but it'd be 4 or 5 years at least, I should think. So that's making progress. Trevor Wright's rung me. He's delighted, because he won't necessarily agree with the type of trees that are planted there, but he's delighted it's making progress, and you have been consulting him. I've already mentioned that seat. It seems sensible to put that there. Well, we've got an opportunity with slide it in on a motion, almost not quite illegally, but it qualifies under that. So, and it's good that we're addressing the other issues besides the beautification long term of that area with the Model Railway Club as well as the dog park, and so that'll be a stunning area in time. The dog park there is recognised. People tell me it's as good a dog park as there is anywhere in New Zealand. So this will even enhance it a little bit more. So I have no problem moving this recommendation. Duncan?
Well, I have very little to add other than echo what you've just said, but I think from a board's perspective, and especially the new members on the board, here's the great opportunity to endorse this, because I think if you look back, when I look back on my time within council, time goes by, but here's an opportunity to say, well, I was part of this, or I recommended it. I think it is a great move forward, and it tidies up a long issue that's been outstanding or a large period of time, and if we can make it happen, it'd be great.
Kirsten?
Yes, this is a major entranceway into Rangiora, and it has always looked a bit sad with the pine trees. As much as it's got a natural look, it would be nice to make that look a bit more pleasant for people coming in. The groups that are in there are very proactive. The dog park people have raised lots of money for the dog park. They've had community buy-in, so it's building on something that's already working well. The Model Railway Club have to move out of the building in Blake Street. And you can see with the shortage of parking in Rangiora why, because that area we're going to have to do something about at some point, and it's getting more and more urgent. So they will then be homeless, and they are a very, very keen club. They're also educating young people in those skills as well, and bringing a lot of joy to the children in our district. So them having a base will further their ambitions in that area. The Arboretum is an absolutely outstanding idea. I'm very pleased that it's come from a member of the community as a vision. I'm obviously just a little cautious about the type of trees, like everyone has mentioned, and also the budget, because it does, we are going to be really tight over the next 3 years, and so there won't be very much to give for extra initiatives. However, money sticks to a good idea, and I've no doubt that the community gets behind it and can see the vision that's put into the plan, that we'll get some really good feedback on this consultation.
Paul.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to proceed and happen. It needs that area cleaning up. The only apprehension I've got is the when we have to do Kippingberger Avenue. One day we may need a budget for that, and we may be stretched to get enough for that, but we'll cross that bridge when it happens. But the Model Railway Club, yeah, that's very important. They're a good group, and they go to the school holidays to our own library and get a lot of support. So, and I think that will be a good place for them to do their bits and pieces. There's nowhere else for them in Rangiora at this stage, so that's really good. So it'll be good to see that area really tidied up, and yeah, and that's about all. I would actually like to wonder about the seat, whether before we actually spend it, although it can be in the budget, whether we could actually approach a good group like the Lions Club or Rotary to see whether they wanted to help toward donate a seat for that area with their the good things they do around the community that may help our budget. But apart from that, really good. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, there's nothing to reply to, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. The contrary, carried. Item 6.2, pages 30 to 39. Joanne.
Thank you. This report is seeking approval to change 2 raised pedestrian platforms within Rangiora Town Centre, one on Percival Street outside the courthouse and the other one on Victoria Street, 2 pedestrian crossings. We've carried out a review due to comments that were raised, service requests and also letters that had come in relating to not only these raised platforms but also other crossings within the district. We circulated a memo to the board in October around courtesy crossings, and since then we've also carried out a review and pedestrian counts in these 2 locations. So during a 1-hour period on the Percival Street crossing we had a count of 144 pedestrians, and on Victoria Street we had a count of 106. We require a minimum pedestrian number of at least 50 for a pedestrian crossing to be considered. I just note in the recommendations the cost of changing these 2 raised platforms to pedestrian crossings is around $2,500 for signs and road marking. But do need to note that that does not include lighting of the pedestrian crossings. I would also note that Rangiora Town Centre, the High Street crossings, do not have lighting currently that's compliant with the standard, and this would be something that we would be looking to address as part of a future lighting upgrade along the street. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, any questions for Joanne? Kirsten.
Joanne, comfortable with the Victoria Street one, but with the Percival Street one, it's got very poor visibility at the moment with those raised platforms. And so people are very cautious. They stop and look and make eye contact with the parked cars coming out such a long way. With the thought that we have heard that more people are killed on pedestrian crossings sometimes than courtesy, do you perceive any other changes that could be made to that area to improve the visibility and give cars and pedestrians ideas of who has the right of way there? Because at the moment even cars are having trouble getting through there with the narrow parking.
Yep. We do get the odd comment regarding the parking, and we've obviously got angle parking along the eastern side of Percival Street outside the Farmers Building, and around about 2 or 3 parallel parks on the western side. Now the comments that we normally get are, I have to wait and it takes time to get through that area. But to be honest, that's a good thing because it actually slows traffic down. So what we do find is when there aren't cars parked in there, that we get an increase of speed of vehicles going through that area, which is actually more of an issue from a safety perspective. In terms of increasing visibility, to be honest, I don't think there would be a lot that could be done, and I think really that's around. We've got the planter boxes with the street trees on the eastern side of the road, and we obviously wouldn't want to be touching those. Apart from taking car parking out, which is probably not highly desirable in the town centre, I think there would probably be limited that we could do.
At some point members raised the idea of having a stop, make sure it's clear type sign at the pedestrian crossing. Had any more thought been given to that in the town centre area?
Yep, so we attached to that report is the memo that came out to the board in October, and after reviewing, so with courtesy crossings, they require courtesy from both parties. They require the driver to be courteous, and they require the pedestrian to make eye contact, and actually for the two to come to some agreement as to who's going to go. We, as I said, we've had a number of service requests where there definitely is confusion around who has the right of way, which is partly an education thing, which we are planning on doing some education when we roll out some stencil marking that we're going to look at some of the raised platforms. And what we had planned is basically marked on the footpath, check before you step, painted stamp. That is an option for us to consider in the town centre in these two locations if the board didn't want to move to a pedestrian crossing. Again, it relies on people making those decisions and stepping out accordingly. It's a really challenging one, and it becomes a risk-based argument. We do see people stepping out onto courtesy crossings on a regular basis and not necessarily understanding that they don't have the right of way.
Paul, and then Jason.
Have you had any recorded accidents happening on these two pedestrian crossings at the moment?
I'm not aware of any in Rangiora. I am aware of one, I think, in Kaipoi on William Street. Yeah. They are normally relatively low speed environments, and to be honest, some of it is people will get a big fright, and we will then end up with a service request or a complaint because it's given them such a fright.
Jason.
Thank you for the report. I actually quite enjoyed reading this one. I noticed that Victoria Street included people crossing in the subway Winnebago section. I was just wondering how many of them would have been crossing there, and would there be any, I know it would be frustrating because of infrastructure, would there be any consideration to actually move the crossing to the south side of Albert Street as opposed to maintain it where it is?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. I don't have the exact number in front of me, and I think the numbers on the northern side of the road were slightly higher than the ones at Winnebago's, but there will be a desire line for people who are wanting to go to Subway or to Winnebago's there. Victoria Street is a little bit more challenging. We could look at something like a wider tabletop or raised platform in the longer term there, but if the issue with that one is if you make people walk 3 legs to get to the same place, then they're unlikely to do it. They'll just take the shortest route, which is why we haven't recommended closing that crossing point outside Subway.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Paul? Right. There was a second for that. Robbie? Paul?
I think it's a sensible thing to do because at the moment there's hesitation and people don't know whether they've got the right of way and or actually I know, I've seen people myself, they've sort of start crossing there and some cars want to give way, some don't. So it just takes that, the information and the correct way of doing it. So I think it's a good move.
Robbie? What about your speaker? Is it all right?
I had questions over this report which emailed through to staff, so it wasn't taking too much of the meeting's time and they present answers satisfactorily. I would have concerns at some of the other courtesy crossings, for example, right out here, ever being considered for full closed pedestrian crossing status, and likewise down at Eastbelt. One that is of concern to me is the one outside the liquor store down by the bar. But again, at the moment it seems to be working okay. These two cities, where they are, as I say, I had questions, they've been answered, and on that basis I'm prepared to support it. I'm not going to mention my biggest misgiving.
And I appreciated you copying me into your correspondence. Thanks, Robbie. Any other speakers? Of course you may.
Just with regards to the notice, the check before you step, I'm curious, is for younger people, children, etc., are they better to have words or symbols to remind them to look? Like a pair of eyes looking at them or something to, what is more effective with younger people to remind them to look for traffic? And I'm just curious whether they'd read check before you step, where's a symbol maybe more effective?
Yeah, and I do understand where you're coming from with that, and it'll be possibly challenging to try and pictorially get that across to a younger child. Technically, children should be supervised when they are out and about in a busy town centre, and I guess that would be our expectation. I think it would be challenging to try and have words and pictures and not end up with something that's quite cluttered and maybe a little unsightly.
Kirsten?
Well, I'm prepared to support the motion. I'm very, very concerned about the one on Percival Street. It's straight outside the library, and I've seen children run straight from the library to that crossing. If they think that it's safe to go straight across as a pedestrian crossing, they may continue. And the visibility is quite poor for drivers. It's quite hard to see them past the planters when they're little and past the parked cars. That one I think needs some major education. It needs a major campaign of some sort to say this has changed, this is what you have to do. Also perhaps involving the local schools who do come to the library quite regularly, even to just educate them on that pedestrian crossings are not for you to walk straight across because a driver may not have seen you.
Any other speakers? There's nothing to reply to, so I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. The contrary, carried. Thank you, Joanne. Just before you go, I was asked today what's happening with the lights on the trees. They've been all off again. Christmas is coming. Are they going to be working properly?
I believe so. So we've got some plans in place. We'll get them checked on a daily basis as we roll into Christmas, just to make sure that they are. I'm also aware there's a timer issue at the moment between the two controllers, so I think one was coming on earlier than the other. But yeah, we've got that. We'll get that in hand.
Thank you, Joanne. Item 6.3, pages 40 to 49, road naming, K.
Good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, Scott couldn't make the meeting tonight, so you'll have to put up with yours truly. The Goldie Drive one, as you're probably aware, already is on one side of the road, so that's just an extension down, which I would imagine the board wouldn't bother much about. And the other is Oakville Close. So I presume I'll take that as read, and hopefully none of you will have any questions.
Prove her wrong. Any questions? Paul.
Are young people allowed to live on Goldie Drive?
All right, we have a recommendation. Seems straightforward. Yeah.
Just purely because I understand there are a couple of artists' names on offer to go in those places. Are there, or Goldie, but there were, are there other streets in that neighbourhood that might be able to have those artists' names in future? But perhaps you won't know that, sorry.
Well, the other ones are Townsend Road and Pentecost Road, so...
No, they mentioned Binney and Gibb were two other names that were mentioned as being possibilities. That were artists.
Oakville's got a
It
nice,
has, yeah, I agree.
Ring, but I know what you're saying, that's right.
And the other question was Goldie, when they extend it, how are the numbers? You probably don't know that either. I'm sorry. Do people have to change their numbers on their mailboxes, or are they just going to go, I presume it's round the correct way?
In the report, they talk about starting the numbering from Pentecost. So I presume the top end was numbered correctly at the time that they were built.
Carry on.
All right.
I presume it does. Carry on.
That's all right. That'll do.
Right. Someone prepared to move something? Jason. So you're moving the recommendation? And do you wish to speak to it? Duncan?
No, I think that the report on page 41 clearly outlines the reasons why they came to that conclusion.
Yeah. All right. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary carried. Item 6.4, pages 50 to 80. Application for the discretionary grant, K.
This is another toy library. I think we've had toy library once or twice before. The Pikler Triangle sounds very, very ambitious for a little wooden climbing frame. But I'll take the report as read, and I couldn't find any particular reason why the board wouldn't want to help with that. Any questions?
They're asking for 494. Someone prepared to move something. Andy's moved. I'll just come back to you in a minute, Paul. No, it's been moved. Have we seconded? Then I'll come back for the question. Second by Monique. Question, Paul.
You thought the questions before the moving.
Well, I'd asked for more questions. No one asked any. I asked for a mover, and the mover had moved, so it was appropriate to finish that and then come back to you. We're not denying you your question.
Yeah. Just at the last meeting, the chairman of our group was sort of suggesting that these grants were set up for people, for businesses or organisations as a first type thing to get them moving and what have you, and not keep repeating requests for bits and pieces all there. So I was going to ask the chairman to sort of his opinion on what he was saying last meeting compared with what happens on this one.
I was saying very much what you have enunciated. Normally, an application, we don't normally make it an annual event for them to come annually back. That would then be appropriate to go to the council for permanent funding if that's what they were wanting. And so there's nothing wrong with making 1 or 2 grants, but not on a permanent basis. That's what I was saying. Yes. Okay.
If you have a look at the criteria of the funding, it does say that a group may actually apply twice a year, as long as it doesn't exceed 500. This group has only applied periodically. It hasn't applied every year.
No.
You're still looking for a seconder?
No. Jason Duncan. Oh no, sorry. It was Paul who and Monique.
Andy, Monique.
Andy, Monique. We'll get there eventually. Right. Do anyone else wish to speak? Andy, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My perception of the toy library is that it's particularly beneficial to probably our lower socioeconomic families that can't afford to go and buy all of these things for themselves. And we have a reasonable amount of money in our budget still for this, so I think it's a fantastic course.
Monique. Robbie, and then Kirsten.
Some of you may be aware that there's a fees and charges working party with regard to groups that use community facilities. I'm on it this term, and we've received around about 60 to 70 applications for a reduction in what we charge people for using council facilities. What I have been indicating is that some of these groups, instead of going through the community and recreation team, should in fact be looking at their local boards with regard to seeking money. To date, there's only been a couple that we have not approved to a degree, so there's a degree of still subsidising these really great causes. However, at this stage, we're still over $40,000 as far as what we have let these groups off the normal rate. So I would hope that the boards can expect to see in the future some applications from some of these very good causes with regard to utilising our facilities.
Thanks, Robbie. Anyone? Kirsten?
I think it's really, really important to remember the groups that apply to us are all pretty much run by volunteers, and they service a sector of the community that we can't necessarily look after. So they actually give us incredible value for money. We've always maintained in this grant system, it's only a small grant, it's only $500, that it's on a project basis. So we don't want groups to apply for operational funding, absolutely agree, but we do want them to apply if they need to buy more assets or they need to have some sort of activity that's different from their general day-to-day administration. So I have absolutely no problem with groups applying twice a year, and that's specified, as you said, in our criteria. I've got a different view from Robbie on the fees and charges. I actually feel horribly uncomfortable if groups come to us asking for money to pay back council fees. It's like paying money to yourself. So it's a round circle thing. I think the appropriate place for them to come is to the Community Facilities Fees and Charges Working Group to prove that financially they're not able to operate successfully as a community group, non-profit, under the current fees regime. So I would prefer us to be very open-minded with some of these groups. Some of these groups may come back every year, some don't. We try to encourage as many groups as we possibly can to apply for these little bits of help that just get them over the line on some of their projects. I will remind you that most years we are undersubscribed. We actually have money left over at the end of the year. So I think we can afford to be a little bit generous in this space. I think we can afford to spread the money around nice and equally, but I don't like paying council money back to council.
I think you make a very valid point. I think we always have money left over at the end of this, or nearly always. I only remember back in the pool days that we didn't. Right, anyone else wish to speak? Okay, there's nothing, Andy, to reply. Paul, did you want to speak?
I was just going to speak, will I be supporting this by
I need to really point out, make sure everybody realises, normally a grant is going towards a wee bit of a hardship group. This group's actually got $42,000 in their bank in credit and actual cash, so I just personally don't think that's quite a bit of a hardship, bit of a grant, which normally we try to...
Point of order, Mr Chair, is hardship one of our criteria?
No, it's not. But,
Point of order.
But no. I'm speaking at the moment. But he's quite entitled to raise the question. He's debating it, and he's quite within standing orders to make the point he's making.
Thank you. That's all I need to say.
Okay. All right. No further debate. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. 6.5 meeting and workshop dates. K.
As per usual, this comes up at the end of every year for you to resolve on your meeting dates for the following year. As you will have noticed, I said that we are going to be here until the council chamber is available, so don't know how long that will take. But the meeting dates basically follow the same pattern as the last year.
Second Wednesday.
So it's the second Wednesday of the month, currently at 7 p.m, unless members have a sudden surge of energy and change it to 6 or 8. I'll take any questions.
No one's got a sudden urge of energy here. Right, we've got a recommendation. Any questions? Okay. Someone prepared to move the recommendation? Moved by Sarah, seconded Monique. Do you wish to speak to it, Sarah? All right. Anyone else? All right. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Item 8, the Chair's report. I'll move its adoption. Duncan seconds that. All those in favour, please say aye. Question? Yes, certainly.
Just wanted to know the outcome of the meeting with the Custer Equestrian Club. Have you got any update on that?
No, we haven't heard back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When you do.
That was left with Green Space. Yeah, I think it was all positive. That was my interpretation of the meeting. Yeah. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. Item 9, matters for your information. We need to receive that. Is someone prepared to move the rec? Jason moves, seconded by Andy. Put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. We'll start with you, Robbie.
Thank you. So heaps and heaps of briefings, obviously with an LTP coming up and issues around Three Waters. We've got roading and drainage as well. So yeah, lots and lots of briefings. We had a meeting with the Selwyn District Council a couple of weeks ago, which I quite enjoyed actually. It was a good couple of hours touching on issues that we have in common. Probably of more interest to the group, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to give you much information other than what I'm getting from Denise myself at the moment with regard to the yellow bin audits. There are some addresses that have had their second occasion where they have failed to have the correct material in their recycling bin, and a third strike and you're out, you're losing your bin. So apparently a few have been getting a little bit heated in their exchanges with Denise, but it's something that, as I say, more information will come out in due course. But needless to say, it's disappointing because it only takes one contaminated bin to contaminate the truck, and then the truck's contaminated, it goes to Cape Valley, and we're all paying for that extra. So, but I just can't understand how people are not getting it. I really am struggling with it. So that's it from me, Jim.
Robbie, when they get their warning, are they spoken to, or is it just something on the bin? I can understand on the bin for the first time, but
my niece has been following up as best she can to say, look, you cannot put that material, this material, into that bin. It's got to go into your red bin, or alternatively, if potentially it goes into your green bin. It's your chicken bones. I put crayfish bodies into my green bin, the first dive of the season. So there's a lot of things that would have gone into the red bin that you can actually put into your green bin because it all gets munched up. So, and people are just not getting it.
it's actually quite strange putting chop bones and chicken bones and things into your green waste. I must admit. Duncan, you had a question of Robbie?
Comment on Robbie, but I thought Kitty had made a very good press release because she came to this meeting one or two meetings ago, and the press release that was released afterwards regarding outlining clearly what it was costing the council. It was very clear, and I think that's the point that this meeting was trying to make to Kitty. If she published the issue of just how many $1,000 it was costing Waimak District to dump it, perhaps something would get through to people.
People don't read.
I thought the article was outstanding as far as being to the point.
Monique.
I'm one of the offenders, I'm sorry to admit. So I'll tell you how it goes. I did actually, I did genuinely.
You made a mistake.
Yes.
Not an
So receipts, no, a receipt was in the box. And so they were, and also some plastic that ought to have not been there. But they were very good. It was a great little note. They put a note in my mailbox plus the offending matter. And and they listed what the problems were. So I thought they really did a very good service, and I won't be offending again.
There's a very honest member of the board. Kirsten.
Sorry, just to make it critically clear, you're a good person. Your bin was almost right. Okay, so if you've got a note in your letterbox with stuff, you are a good person. Okay, this is the message that's got wrong, I'm afraid, and unfortunately, it's a message we need to get rid. If you've got a wee bit of contamination, they put a little in your bin and say, hey, don't do this next time, but they collect your bin. If they collect your bin, you've done fine. If they leave your bin there and put a big nasty note on the letterbox, on that thing, and then Monique follows up, then you're in trouble. So what the message that's gone out to the community is you're bad if you get stuff in your letterbox. You're not. It's an education exercise. So we need to spread the word and say, if your bin got collected, you're doing fine. You just need to tidy up a couple of things maybe. And that's what this whole process is about. You're not going to get your bin taken away for having a couple of bits of plasticals and recesses in your letterbox.
Thank you, Kirsten. So Monique, you don't need to stand in the corner after all. Robbie. You done? Right, Kirsten.
Yes. I keep forgetting what month we're in, so apologies, Mr. Chair. District plan briefings are my key focus. We're really heavily into extra briefings for district plan. We're covering the entire e-plan, which once the draft has gone through, it will then come out for people to be able to actually look at it all online, which will be really exciting. And that's due for completion around about February next year for the council to have a look at it, and then we have to go through the decision-making process. So that's a big, big, big job on top of our LTP budget briefings as well. I attended the LGNZ Zone 5 and 6 conference, which obviously you saw some of us disappearing down south on the last board meeting. Really interesting to hear from other councils. Everyone's facing the same issues. Water is top of mind, and we've got a new president of LGNZ, Stuart Crosby, and a new chief executive, Susan Freeman Green. Really good to see there's a lot more diversity in local government. Got 40% women, more Māori, more younger elected members, and community boards are contributing to that as well, so well done. And they're looking at trying to, for LGNZ to try and fill the gap, stop reform being done by accident to us, and that for us to be more involved at the coalface with Department of Internal Affairs and so on. So the new team are trying to really be in the room as the policy is being made, rather than just receiving it like we have been doing quite a bit. So that was a really interesting talk. The other things we've had at the council meeting, obviously, Robbie's mentioned shovel ready, a lot of work being done there. We also had the visitor marketing strategy, which some of you attended,
adopted, the draft adopted at the council meeting, which is really focusing on local market. So making a point of difference is why come to waimakariri? Why come here? And getting New Zealanders to come to realise the amazing things. And the key focus of it is actually a lot of our residents don't even know the great places we've got in our district. So we have to educate them to then educate the wider New Zealand. So we've also had, I've had SSW advisory group. Mental health continues to be probably the biggest challenge. And we had a visit from the big boss of Civil Defence, Susan Stewart-Black, her name's Norm, and there's a lot of changes happening in the Civil Defence space to make it more regional, which will help us overall as well. Otherwise, we've had other people will talk about the Sports Centre Awards, the 10-year sports in schools. Arohatia Te Awa, they're starting to talk to stakeholders, but that's mainly out of our ward, it's in the Kaipui area. And obviously we have the Community Services Awards this week, which the Chair's already mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Morris.
Just a couple of things. I've been working with Jason and Jim on our submission for opposing the quarry by Taggart. We've had 2 meetings on that. Another thing that I found very interesting was the awards last night. It's the first time I'd ever been to them. I'd like to congratulate the 3 councillors here and Joan that's not. I know you spoke for your citations. I'm not too sure whether you knew the person or not, but sometimes it can be a wee bit difficult giving a citation when you don't really know the person that well. And it was the first time I saw Dan with the mayoral chains on, and I thought he'd done very well. And I told him that after the event, because everything's been cancelled up to this day, so you don't really see too much. But very impressed with the awards. They were well done.
They were excellent. Thanks, Morris. Duncan.
I also was present at the awards. They were very good. I think what struck me was the diversity within our district that is clearly starting to appear, and they were reflected within the awards. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I don't very often comment on previous board minutes, but Morris reported on the drainage meeting last meeting, and while he reported very well, I was also present at the meeting. But the point I want to make, and I think it's information sharing, and I think it falls well within the criteria, was we had ratepayers there concerned about how the drainage work was being done, and this word wetlands came up, and what has really sparked these people off is that ECAN have used satellite imagery to find wetlands. Now they found one on our place, and they haven't told us yet, but I know. So that they, but all I could tell them that I fenced it 3 years ago, so I'm well ahead of their play. But so they're using technology, and the crunch of what these people were trying to tell us was that the council, Waimak District Council, hadn't cleaned their drains out for 20 years. Of course, it was a wetland, but if the drain hadn't been cleaned, and we raised this issue some time ago that there are drains that are not being cleaned out on a periodic thing, and if you live in land between Rangiora and Kaipui, for example, you can imagine how wet they will get. The imaging picked this up. The Waimak District Council now is in the uneven position as they won't intervene because it's been declared a wetland. I thought it might be information be worth sharing.
It is. It's very interesting. Yeah. Right.
Sorry.
Yep.
Also, I'd like the record put straight. They don't seem to like me really, but Jason has been going to the Cass Community Centre meetings. I believe I was nominated to carry on. I've spoken to Jason. He's happy with what he's doing. There's no problem from me, so I'd like the record put straight that he is the representative from this board. On the website, it's still me. So.
Okay. K's made it. K's made it. Yeah. Yeah. Murray.
I haven't actually done much over the last month because I was busy shifting. But it is interesting that most of the people in the southern end of the town, amongst them, there's a number of people really concerned about the fact there's going to be a retirement village down there. But I've had to explain to a couple of them that elderly people usually go to bed at 7 o'clock at night, and they don't own Zephyrs with blown thing that goes on. The other thing I discovered is this contaminated rubbish issue. 2 elderly people mentioned to me that the council had given them away, and they're a little bit concerned, as elderly people can get. And I investigated, and I found out it wasn't the people that lived in the house. Both of them were under full care for housekeeping and nursing. And when the nurses and housekeepers left, they were chucking everything in the other recycle bin. So I had to arrange to get another bin for them in the finish. But that's another problem that can happen. And the other thing I had happen was two of the people that lived at Burnside complained bitterly about having to slow down from Easter Brook Road onwards as they went through, and then the council reduced it to 60. And it's quite interesting because a lot of them who live up there and go to work in the morning have no intention of slowing down. I was going down there at 90 the other morning, which I shouldn't have been, and there was 2 other cars behind me, and the bloke in the 323 went down the outside of us and went straight through the intersection on Flexon Road without even stopping. So, I mean, what do you do about that? You can't, can you?
Robbie's listening.
And these motorists in Flexon were complaining about cars popping out of Townsend Road that are getting in their way. I don't know what we can do about it. That's what they told me. Thanks anyway.
That's good. Monique.
I noticed that there's a group or a guy by the name of Mike Dixon who's put the opposition to the quarry thing going, and he had the meeting at the church recently, a public meeting, and I noticed his post on Neighbourly trying to encourage the public to make a submission against the quarry. So I emailed him because he'd asked for them to just do written submissions, and I said I understand that it's better to do a verbal submission as well. So I contacted him and told him to press in another post to add that in. And he said there's a small group that are trying to get themselves, sort of trying to make a bit of an impact. And I mean, they were aware that Rangiora-Ashley Community Board have a group that are opposing it, or getting a submission together. And so he was pleased about that. And I've said that maybe we connect up somehow. So I had a word to Jim, and he's now got Jim's number, so he can give him a call to get some advice for what's going on from this end. That's really all.
Thank you, Monique. Sarah.
There's probably 1 or 2 of us that have children at school, and I do talk about schools just a little bit because that's what I bring to the table. So that's, if you're wondering why I mention them, that's why I do. So I have a daughter at Rangiora High, and she was part of a Wearable Arts Night. It was a fabulous competitive event where I was modelling her outfit, which the reason I mention these things is, 1, it's a great event, and 2, that's my part in mixing with the community, you know. So that's why I mention what goes on with schools and what parts we as people that do have children here bring to the table. Also, I've got a son who goes to Ashgrove School, and they had their Ashgrove School Gala, which was very small this year. And I suppose they get a little bit nervous about doing these big events and then having to cancel them, so it was very small. But nonetheless, they still did that, and they've got a new principal, I think his name's Leon, if I've got that right, and he was wandering around, and so we got to meet him, and I'm quite pleased with him actually. The dealings I've had with him in a very short space of time that he's been there, he's lovely. So that's a little bit with the schools. On Friday the 30th of October, yes, I did attend the event at the North Canterbury Sport and Recreation Trust put on at the Main Power Oval, and a great afternoon of drinks, nibbles and presentations and announcements where we, surprise, surprise, found out that the stadium would be called Main Power Stadium. So that was a lovely, lovely afternoon. Sunday the 1st of November, I took a group of women on an 8-kilometre walk starting in Silverstream, and we started at the Urban Revival Cafe. I took them all the way to Kaipoi, looping back to Silverstream again, where we all had coffee at Urban Revival. another reason why I mention these things, it's a little bit with what Kirsten was saying before. We've got a lot of people who live in our district who don't even know where things are. They don't know that they can have coffee at Bourbon Revival and walk all the way to Kaipo and back. There's a track that goes right round the river, 8 kilometres, and it's just a fantastic asset that we have, that a lot of women say, well, I would never even know this was here. I don't charge anything for it because I think there's a lot of people with no money. Also, Kirsten mentioned mental health, I think, is one of the main reasons a lot of people come along, just to have a break. It doesn't cost anything. They get to see where things are in our district. And I do take great pride in being able to take these women on these walks. And that's why I mention them. Monday the 2nd of November, I was part of a quiz team that we had a quiz night at CBK in Kaipoi, and that was a local fundraiser and we raised money for Kids Can. And also the community awards night last night was brilliant. Thank you to whoever it is that gave us the invitation. We've not been before as community board members for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter. But I think it was very good for us to be a part of it and see who actually was the recipients and the stories behind why they got those awards. And I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Jason.
Firstly, because I'm going to start with the Cuss Community Centre, my apologies, Duncan. Didn't mean to stand on any toes. It seems to be progressing quite well over there. Very passionate committee, and they definitely know what they want. So I'm quite looking forward to spending a few more times down there and seeing it progress as it goes. I attended the second North Canterbury Neighbourhood Support Governance Workshop because they're trying to take the organisation in a new direction and give it clear guidance for all its volunteers to really, I guess, enhance the neighbourliness of our whole entire region. And community awards, I just want to make a note that I was incredibly humbled and know that I've got a very long way to go to even try and stack up with some of those applicants. So congratulations to everyone there. Yeah. Here's hoping. So yeah, that was quite a cool experience, and I really appreciate the invitation. And I've got a spiel on about this. Sorry about the siren, but we are currently doing fundraising for the Fire Brigade, so if anyone would like a raffle ticket, please let me know, and I can sort you out.
Thanks, Jason. Puhu.
Yeah, like Robbie, we've had a lot of meetings and what have you, and I'd imagine, Murray, Robbie will have your thing in the mail tomorrow. But anyway, we've had lots of meetings. Most of you probably heard the Cuss water supply, we've found some E. coli on it, and luckily for the council, it sort of proves out the fact while we're upgrading that system, but unfortunately that system's going to be probably 12 months before it's finished, so the Cuss scheme looks like it's going to have chlorine in it on a permanent basis now, so everybody might be going to get a bit of flack on that, but that doesn't come from the council, that comes from the health the side of it, so they get dictated to the council what happens. So it looks like it's because it's had the second a contamination in a 12-month period, that's it's going to have chlorine in it basically forever, unless we can find out good reasons to bring it out, if we can find the source of the contamination. The Mayor, myself and Jared Cleary went and saw Huranui Council about the Huranui water scheme, because as a lot of people here realise, they keep going into restriction when the flow in the Ashley River drops. The Huranui Council's quite concerned about it, because even though it drops here, they're still coming from a bore, and there's actually plenty of water, and they're not even using half of their resource consent for their water. So Jared come up with a reasonably good idea, as if Huranui could connect their Leithfield supply into the Ashley supply at the same time when they go into restrictions, and we've had communication with the Huranui Council that ECAN are quite respective to that happening, so it looks like if that happens we may not have a restricted on the Huranui scheme, and whether they'll actually use that water from the Litchfield we don't know, Leithfield I don't know, but it looks quite promising on that scheme there anyway. We've had some bit of bad news I feel from the Water Authority in the plans from, I think, don't quote me on this, I think 1st July next year. It looks like all our water supplies might have to be chlorinated. That's what they're pushing, so our staff are not quite certain whether we have to have them chlorinated on the 1st of July and then we can apply for an exemption, or whether we're allowed to apply for an exemption for good reasons to try to keep chlorine out of some of our supplies. But when you read the scenario, it doesn't look good. So so maybe possibly by the 1st of July we may be forced into a chlorine in all our water supplies, but I know our council water guys are going to try to get an exemption from it, but at the way it's written we don't know whether we can apply after the 1st of July, after we've got chlorine in it, or whether we can do it beforehand, so they're working on that. So
I'd imagine, Paul, the city will be feeling strongly about that.
Exactly the same, and Selwyn as well. So but the problem is we're the only 3 councils in the whole of New Zealand without the chlorine. So we're sitting all by ourselves, which is the biggest problem. And I didn't realise that. I thought, yeah. Anyway, I had a meeting with the Cycon. The new, as everybody realised, Cycon's got our new roading contract here. The Cycon team have put an extra truck in for doing potholes now. So there's going to be 2 trucks rather than 1. The CEO from the Cycon would, believe it or not, he said he'd appreciate it if we find any potholes, snap, solve, send, because even though they've got people out looking for these potholes and fixing them, they find it's a maze of all the roads we've got round. So if you see a pothole, they've got an extra truck on board now, so please snap, solve the pothole to them, and they're surprised me when they say they'd like that as well. I went to the road safety meeting. The police have been doing a bit of a thing, getting quite a few people with texting on phones at the moment around the community. So it's actually quite bad with the numbers. Well, I think they're getting a bit of revenue out of a wee bit of it, but so we have to, it's quite a bad thing that's happening around the area. There's 3 policemen at the meeting, one of the senior ones, and it was worse than what they expected it to be. So, so that's a bit of a worry what's happening. And that's probably about all for now.
Thanks, Paul. Andy?
Nothing particular about meetings, but just of interest in Ashley, Loburn, North Loburn, there's, the roads are still really bad. Hopefully Cyclone gets a better grader driver. But there's a lot of burglaries going on lifestyle blocks at the moment, and a lot of anxious people. Lots of security cameras and things are getting installed. It's really bad.
Is it in houses or just out
lifestyle blocks,
everywhere?
sheds, motorbikes, getting stolen, and yeah, it's. I think there's a group of 2 or 3 guys that steal a vehicle, go out to Loburn, North Loburn, and then in the early hours of the morning and rip them off. But yeah, it's tough to. They're struggling to get them at the moment, apparently. But, quite concerning.
Thank you, Andy. Item 11, consultation projects. You've just been emailed in the last short while. Ravenswood, that's just gone out. That closes on the 14th of December. That's for your board funding, for your information. Landscape, for your information. Items 13, 14 and 15, nothing there. So that brings us to the end of our formal meeting. The next meeting, as you would see, is on Wednesday the 9th. So We'll now move into clear it closed and we'll move into workshop. I notice the